Having seemingly very little to do with an actual barbecue, ENA Dream BBQ is certainly one of the most bizarre, avant-garde games I've ever played, and I love it. Taking control of ENA, the first chapter here has the player traversing some wild areas all to get to the bathroom to find a genie with the goal of reducing smoke levels that prevent the player from reaching a mysterious character known simply as the boss. Now, there are actually two different paths that the player can take to beat this chapter, each which offer a slightly different experience, and each having its own set of speedrun tricks. So in a first for these speedrun videos on my channel, I'll actually cover both categories in one video here. So smack that like button below, let's check out the bizarre world of Dream BBQ speedruns. Alright, so before even starting a run, it's important to actually go into the game's settings to change up a few things that will make runs go a bit faster. First up, we'll actually want to enable the crosshair, change the dialogue skip speed to be immediate, as well as toggle to use quick UI animations to save a bit more time. Alright, so first up we have what's referred to as the Purge event path for this game, and as of the making of this video, the world record is held by Citrus with a time of just 6 minutes and 35 seconds. Now, time for these runs start as soon as you finish going through the opening audio and visual setting screens, and then bam, we rip our way into this ominous dark town with an awesome looking red sky that just happens to have a giant shadow fella swimming through it because, yeah. Anyways, as soon as we get control, we'll want to turn around and start making our way forwards and to the left, crossing over a lane until we start to see some lanterns on the buildings, at the end of which we can see this bed, which of course we take a snooze on. Doing this then teleports us into this swanky looking casino, but we don't stay here long, as we just want to make our way up these stairs and then quickly skip over 2 cutscenes that start up top here. Then after that, we actually get to do arguably the biggest trick of the run. So after the second cutscene is skipped, we'll want to make our way over to behind this wall, and the main reason we wanted to enable the crosshair option earlier is because it can be used to help with aligning yourself for this next trick. So typically, I like to aim the crosshair at the peak of the mountain to the left of the gate ring thing here, and then by crouching down and walking backwards and to the left, we can actually clip right through the floor below. And yeah, alignment is pretty important here, as if you're not walking back at the right angle, you'll still feel where the drop area is, but you won't actually drop on through. Anyways, after falling for a bit, eventually you'll actually notice a copy of the area above below, but this time with the casino section that you go through in a normal playthrough. Now, why there are 2 copies of this area here, we may explore in a future Lost Bits video or something, but for now, we'll actually want to control our fall, so we fall into this long corridor here. Now, obviously, it's important to not mess this drop up, as if you miss falling into this corridor, needless to say, it's a run killer. But once in, we can make our way back towards the alley here, which will actually warp us into this maze area, which when playing through normally can be a bit difficult to navigate, but thankfully, we start out here right where we want to, as in only a few steps we can reach this garbage can that when interacted with, can take us right to the next area in the game known as Uncanny Streets. And by doing this out-of-bounds drop, you effectively skip having to talk to the receptionist, the normal entry to this area, as well as a whole bunch of dialogue. Now, everything you've seen so far in this video is actually the same across both speedrun paths, as this is where things start to deviate. And for this first Purge event path, we don't need to go far, as we'll actually just want to head over to this taxi driver fella and enter his sleeve here, which takes us to an underground sub-area. And here, we'll just want to move up a bit to find the taxi driver's 3 heads before then going to exit this area. However, there is also a higher level speedrun trick you can do here, but it requires some frame-perfect jumps, which, unless you do something like remap the scroll wheel to be a jump button, can be incredibly difficult to pull off. But after dropping in, if you do 5 frame-perfect jumps and then grab the heads just after the last one while falling backwards, you'll actually respawn in a different area slightly closer to the exit, which also skips having to crouch walk under this section here. Now, I compared my run with that of the world records, and this seems to save about 5 seconds, so unless you're gunning for the world record, this frame-perfect jumping trick is pretty optional, I'd say. Anyways, after getting out of this underground area, we want to make our way back to the taxi driver who now has the 3 heads back. Now, which of the 3 heads is facing forwards is actually random and is determined every time a new game is started. And why does this matter? Well, the length of the resulting dialogue when interacting with them is actually slightly different depending on which of the 4 heads you end up chatting with the human-looking head actually being the shortest interaction, so for a speedrun, that's the one you want. Now, normally, this would be completely RNG dependent, but the speedrun mods for this game have actually allowed for seeded save files to be used for speedrunning this game to remove the element of randomness in these runs. So basically, if you want to, you can keep reusing a save file that will guarantee things like this human head every single run. I know there are some of you out there that prefer things to be left up to chance, but hey, I don't make the rules. Back to the run though, after chatting with the taxi fella, we can then actually hop into the adjacent taxi and take a ride to the next area. Which, if you look up here, this looks to be the area way above where we just were, and we're upside down, I guess. Anyways, here we get to do another quick and relatively easy trick known as taxi skip, and basically all you gotta do for this is to jump into a certain trigger spot up here. And you can do this by jumping onto the taxi door, and then either jumping on top of the taxi to then jump into the spot, or you can jump off the taxi door onto this coffin thing to then do the same. And whichever method you choose, jumping up to this spot actually removes an upcoming trigger point that normally causes an unskippable cutscene to play, in which a building from above, below, drops down and blocks your path. So not only does doing the taxi skip this cutscene, but it also allows us to just walk through this area unimpeded, allowing us to skip backtracking and traversal you normally have to do otherwise. Then we can make our way into this large ear door, and if these numerous arrows weren't making it obvious enough, this is where we need to go next. But getting in ain't cheap, and although it's all basically skipped over in this speedrun, ENA actually has to sacrifice one of her arms to gain entrance to the disco party inside. Now this actually ends up being a maze that you have to go through, and thankfully the layout here isn't randomized or anything, and if you just want to get through here as quick as possible, the optimal path from entering this area is going left, then forward, right, left, forward, then right, left, and then another final left where we can then find this fella, who after you interact with and skip another bit of dialogue, the entire area will start to slowly fill up with Pepto-Bismol? Hopefully this helps with any nausea, heartburn, indigestion, upset stomachs, or diarrhea anyone here may have. And after guzzling the pink goop, I guess we trip out as we reawaken controlling a dog fella in another maze. Now this maze actually does have a different correct path depending on the seed generated at the start of a new game. Thankfully, just like with the taxi heads earlier, you're currently allowed to reuse save files with optimal seeding. And in the case of the save file that's currently mostly used in the speedrunning community, the path here ends up being going forward from where you start, then right, forward, left, and then forward again. And yeah, this makes this so much faster than just guessing. Then after going through all of that, we reawaken in a new area just known as the core. And here we have to essentially Frogger our way on these rafts to get across this ethereal river to reach a literal porta-potty, portaloo, thunderbox, whatever your local lexicon is, portable toilet. Now this is, I think, the most difficult part of speedrunning this path, and the pattern of the rafts is completely random, and this time around, this isn't really something that can be remedied with using a certain seeded save or anything. It's all skill this time. It also certainly doesn't help that as you wait, some wacky visual effects only further affect your depth perception here. And to top it all off, you only get one shot at this every run, as if you miss or mess up a jump, Although it doesn't outright just cause a game over, this will send you down to another area which takes quite a bit more time to traverse through. So as far as speedrunning this game goes, messing up this Frogger section is essentially a run killer. But if you do manage to hop your way across, you can continue to the portable toilet, which will shrink down as you get closer, and once reaching it, I guess you warp inside into a bathroom, and we don't stay here long at all, as we hop our way down these steps that take us to a locker and shower room, at the end of which is a well, that of course we'll drop into because why not, and as we fall, we're greeted with some words of wisdom. All it takes is a place and the right food. We start up again in a serene room reminiscent of that one room in Ocarina of Time where you fight Dark Link. Here we reach this genie, which we actually have to smack the hell out of with a fan, which I guess causes the hand here to stop rubbing it, and this seems to stop the outflow of the green smoke coming out of the lamp. Eventually, a blue door will spawn in that takes us to another locker room, which in turn leads us back to what looks like the disco party room from before, but this time it's purged of basically any colors it once had. And of course, as you can see, the doors are all open and we now need to run over to any of the white doors around the perimeter. This then brings us to another labyrinth-looking area, but thankfully, this one is pretty straightforward, as you can literally just go straight forward for most of it, until making a few small turns here to get to the last hallway, and this then brings us to what I can only describe as a corrupted version of the area we were in before with the taxi fella. And here we essentially just have to run over to the low poly ship here, which is normally how you enter the regular version of this area, and once inside, with polygons starting to obscure our vision, we have to go upstairs, cross this room, interact with the portal here to try and go back to the hub area, which oops, it doesn't look like it works anymore, and after trying to go back, we succumb to the corruption affecting the area here, and that is actually time for the speedrun, as this is where the first chapter of Dream BBQ ends. Now again, pending verification, the current world record as of the making of this video is held by Citrus with a crazy time of 6 minutes and 35 seconds. And this record seems to be dropping almost daily, so I doubt it'll be long before we start seeing runs sub 6.5 minutes. Now, my best run has been a far less impressive 8 minutes and 18 seconds, which as of the making of this video barely gets me into the top 100 on the leaderboard. And now, for the second part of this video, we switch gears to the other path in this game known as the Ascension Path. Like I mentioned earlier, the first section of the run is identical to the other path, so after once again traversing the red sky opening, doing the floor clip in the main area, and interacting with the garbage can, we can get back to the uncanny streets. This time though, we actually avoid the taxi fella altogether, as we now have to do what's called bridge skip. So normally, in order to cross the bridge here to get to the other side, you have to interact with this Italian-speaking weasel or rat or whatever he's supposed to be, known as Hoarder Alex. And then you have to do a whole series of side quests involving getting several pets for this horse fella to get some chocolate coins, to then buy some mayonnaise, to then cover this purple guy's head, and yeah, it's obviously in a speedrunner's best interest to skip all of that. So back to the bridge, you'll want to jump across to this island, and then you have to do another pretty precise jump to get across to the other side. It's definitely a far jump, but thankfully this game offers what's colloquially referred to as coyote frames, which is when a game allows a few frames after moving off a ledge for the player to still jump. So if you time your jump a few frames after running off here, it should make the jump more doable. Now, once you get across, technically the game treats this as out of bounds, and a countdown will start where the screen will then begin to get brighter. And if you don't run to the left to get back inbounds fast enough, the game will actually treat it as a death, wasting some more time. So we'll now want to quickly run to the left to avoid that, and then after going up, we can skip a little cutscene, make another long jump here, and we can make our way up and across here to then drop down to start the interaction with one of the 4 witches that we need to bring back to the other 3. After chatting with her, we have to make our way up to this crane thing, which starts up a little mini game where we have to slide the crane holding the witch across the map here using these pillars to guide us to the main plaza area. Then once that's done, if you've been doing near frame perfect bunny hops in this whole area, you'll want to climb this rubble here and fall into this pit, which conveniently takes you right back to the plaza as well. But if you're like me who's not nearly good enough to do precise jumping like that, the game will actually reset the spawn point if you're on the ground for too long. So instead, after getting the witch back to the others with the crane, we'll want to exit back to the main menu, reload the save file, and then jump off here, and this will warp us back to the main plaza. And yes, this is all still faster than walking back there normally. Either way though, we can then quickly chat with the witches to obtain our reward for bringing back the fourth one, a motherboard. Which we don't keep for long, as we now bring this motherboard to the shaman's hut right near us to get a life and turn it into this floating head thing known as a human board. It's kind of a shame we have to skip the interaction with the shaman in these speedruns, as I really dig the Zelda CDI-like animations here. Anyways, the mechanic for this human board is wherever we find a patch of fertile soil, that is any of these square holes with some bones in them, we can then plant the human board, which will and we can use this sprouted fella to traverse up and across areas that we couldn't before. So with this newly acquired ability, we'll want to make our way back over the bridge, which now, after doing the bridge skip the first time, we can cross freely, and then we can plant the human board into this patch to get onto the buildings above, and this starts our ascent. Here, visibility gets reduced, but basically we just keep planting these human boards to get higher and higher as you want to try and optimize how fast you place and destroy them to plant the next one. As you get higher, the wind will start to blow faster and faster, which will gradually push you in its direction, so you have to compensate for it as you go up. Some of the jumps are kinda scary, and if you do fall, it can set you back quite a bit, but overall, this section isn't all too bad. Eventually, we can use the human board to make it to these doors, and this will take us right up to the orb fetus thing that was towering over the uncanny streets earlier. Then, after interacting with this snake thing at the bottom, this starts up a rather long, unskippable cutscene where we get eaten and digested into the orb. After this though, we actually line back up with the Purge event path, as this also takes us to the core section with the Frogger jumps that we had to do to get across. The beauty of this Ascension Path, however, is that although the previous steps took a little bit more time, with the human board, we actually remove a lot of the stress that comes with this area, as we can actually plant it on this section of the bridge here, and we can then of course use the human board to casually jaunt over to the portable toilet. And from this point, it's exactly the same as the other path, so we run through the bathroom and locker room, and I didn't mention it earlier, but when starting to go down the well here, during the interaction you'll actually want to choose the top right option, as this results in the shortest interaction. And then, after smacking the hand here around again, going through the rest of these smaller areas, as well as the alternate version of the uncanny streets, we succumb once again to the corruption, and that is time for this Ascension Path of this chapter. Like I said earlier, this path is a bit slower compared to the Purge event, and as of the making of this video, pending verification, the current world record is 8 minutes and 6 seconds held by Will RBX. And for the 3 of you that care, my best so far has been 9 minutes and 41 seconds, which would currently put me at around 37th place on the leaderboard, which hey, not too bad. Now, although I'm brand new to the series and honestly have no idea what's going on with this game's lore, I really enjoyed this first chapter. If you'd like to check it out, it's free on Steam, and if you would like to get into speedrunning this game yourself, I'll leave a link to the speedrunning Discord in the description. It's honestly pretty beginner friendly, so I highly recommend giving it a go. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, check out some of my other speedruns, and be sure to subscribe to the channel to find your way back here in the future. And as always, thank you all so much for running with us today, and I will see you in a bit.